and you sat there and said to that grand jury that that was not you on that tape, that R. Kelly had never sexually abused you, didn't you? The prosecution's main witness, known as Jane, gave her testimony the other day, and then she was subjected to cross-examination. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Let's get into the details. My name is Jamahl Kersey. I am the principal attorney at Kersey Law, a boutique criminal defense firm. And in this video, we're talking about the cross-examination of the prosecution's main witness in this R. Kelly trial, known as Jane. So recall on direct examination, when the prosecutors were questioning Jane, she testified that she met R. Kelly when she was around 12 or 13 years old. He had come to one of her gospel concerts, and then the relationship evolved from there. He would engage in phone sex with her when she was around 14 years old, and then that escalated to touching and finally to actual sexual intercourse when she was 15. And R. Kelly actually had incorporated video, so actually recording their sexual encounters. He had abused her sexually hundreds of times. So hundreds of times from the time she was 14 years old all the way up to 18. After every direct examination is cross-examination. And so cross-examination is the checks and balances of trials, right? So a person can get up on direct examination. They're working with someone, a lawyer who, is on their side, right? So the prosecutor in this case is working with Jane on her direct examination, but then she has to face cross-examination. So opposing counsel gets their opportunity to cross the witness and, ultimately try and discredit that witness. So one thing you guys have to think about is when it comes to trials, so, trials are the cases that you end up seeing on TV, seeing on the news, seeing in shows like Law and Order, but not all lawyers try cases. So not all lawyers go to trial. And so for me, as a young guy, and even, through law school and everything, to me, the classic epitome of the lawyer was being a trial lawyer, being in trial, duking it out with opposing counsel. And one of those things, because trials, being a trial lawyer is very, competitive, and it's almost like competing in a sport. You're going against somebody else head to head. Adrenaline is high. And one of the things that really, where you separate the men from the boys, the women from the girls, is two things in trial: cross-examination and closing arguments. If you're the best, then you want to have the ball in your hand. In the end, you want to close it out. 3 seconds left on the clock. You want that ball in your hand. You want to take the final shot. And that's what, closing arguments is in the context of trials, right? So right now we're focusing on cross-examination, and that also is a very crucial integral part of trying cases. And so when you're cross-examining someone, there's three things that you're going to be focusing on in cross-examination. That's perception, credibility, and bias, right? So those are the three things that you're going to be trying to attack a witness on cross-examination. So in this case, in terms of Jane, the cross-examination was focused on attacking credibility. All right, it was all about exposing the absurdity of the points that she was making on direct examination, also exposing the various lies she's told in the past, and ultimately giving the jury the idea that she should not be believed and that she's lying today, and you really can't believe anything that she says. And so actually, after the presentation of the evidence, the jury is going to be read instructions. So the judge will read them instructions, and this basically tells the jury how to do their job in deliberations. So they're given the law that ultimately is going to be applied to these facts in order to determine whether R. Kelly is guilty or not. So the jurors will also be instructed on witness credibility. So everybody who is sitting on the jury brings with them life experience to the table. And attorneys will oftentimes say, hey, we don't want you to check your life experience at the door. No, bring that with you so you can use it as a tool to help you in making your ultimate decision in this case. We as people tend to be really good readers of people, and you can usually tell when a person is being dishonest, and you can look at how a person talks, the way they deliver what they say. You can look at their body language. You can look at their expression. You can look at in the context of a trial, look at what the person is saying as it compares to the rest of the evidence that's being presented. You're able to analyze the witness's character for truthfulness. So has that character been called into question in the past? One big thing is, did the witness say something in the past that is inconsistent with what they're saying today? An important part of this instruction is that the jury can believe all, part, or even none of what a witness says. And on top of that, there's a portion that says, hey, if you believe that a witness deliberately lied about something significant in this case, then you can consider not believing anything a witness says. So with the rules on assessing a witness's credibility as a backdrop, we know that on cross-examination, R. Kelly's lawyers were going to do their best job, make their best effort to expose the lies that Jane had told in the past and cast doubt on everything that she was saying in courtroom today. And so one of the things that was pointed out on cross-examination is exposing, hey, yeah, you testified on direct that you were sexually abused, right? And you were sexually abused at 14 years old, and this had gone on hundreds of times, well until you were 18 years old, right? But after you became an adult, you were still involved with this guy, right? And so this is calling into question these things that she was testifying about. If you were subject to this just traumatic situation where you were abused and manipulated, isn't it true that you carried on this relationship well into your adult age? And in fact, you were living with R. Kelly and his wife in your 20s. You guys were living together and you were sexually active. You guys had a sexual relationship between you three. And so then exposing this then goes to mitigate on some level, if you had gone through this traumatic experience, what were you doing still involved with this man well into your adulthood, long into the point where you were able to truly assess right from wrong, long past a point where you were just able to be manipulated as a little girl. R. Kelly was financially helping her even after they ended things. So apparently she ended up moving out of this house at 26 years old. They were still in contact. He was still giving her money, helping her out, supporting her in life, and they were still intimate after she left the home. So this was still carrying on. So this little girl who, supposedly was so traumatized by this sexually abusive relationship carried on with this man for many years after she turned 18. On cross-examination, it was also pointed out that there were numerous friendly-natured text messages between 2018 and 2019. So we know that Surviving R. Kelly, the documentary on R. Kelly and the alleged sexual abuse, that came out in January of 2019. And it was pointed out that, hey, up until this documentary came out, you guys were sending text messages. And even after the documentary came out, you were still sending text messages. And she had to admit that, hey, she had changed her phone number after Surviving R. Kelly came out, and she gave him the number. So they're still in contact. So this, again, we're taking this situation where she's painted this picture, a direct examination filled with tears and sadness and I was exploited and all of this. So the purpose of the cross-examination is being able to expose, hey, you're saying that you were sexually abused at this young age and all these things happened to you, but yet, why is it, if this was the case, why is it that, well into your adult years, you're still having contact with this man? They also focused on Jane's denials over the years. So it's been well known that Jane and her family publicly denied that it was her on this tape, denied the abuse by R. Kelly. And so the lawyer is able to say, hey, you sit here in front of this jury today and say that R. Kelly abused you and say that that's you on this tape. But isn't it true that you denied this in the past? You said that wasn't you. And in fact, you sat under oath. So you went in front of a grand jury in Cook County, didn't you? And you were asked to, raise your hand and swear that you were telling the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God. And you agreed to tell the truth. And you sat there and said to that grand jury that was not you on that tape, that R. Kelly had never sexually abused you, didn't you? And so that's going to be powerful on cross because it calls into question her credibility. She sat under oath and lied. And so the idea is that if you're lying back then, why should we even believe you now? And so we know that Jane was not called as a witness in that trial, and ultimately R. Kelly was acquitted. But the false statements did not stop there. Jane made false statements to federal prosecutors when she was questioned by them in 2019. So we're talking about lies presented under oath to a grand jury in Cook County, and then as recently as 2019, lying to federal prosecutors. And so with all this as a background, her saying that she was sexually abused by R. Kelly, but yet continuing on with the relationship, her having denied this for so many years, even denying it under oath, why then is she out here now telling this to the jury today? And Jane's response was that she no longer wanted to carry his lies. One of the other things that the defense harped on was the granting of immunity. So, she lied. She lied under oath, and that would be perjury. So she committed perjury, and she was actually granted immunity in this case so that she would not be prosecuted for what had happened in the last case. Because, if she sat under oath in this case and admitted on the stand that she lied in front of a grand jury, then that could expose her to prosecution, but she's been given immunity. But interestingly enough, Jane had testified that, hey, she would testify even if she wasn't given immunity. Whether that's true or not, that's what she said. She's basically emphasizing that she's tired of keeping R. Kelly's secrets. And one of the last things is the issue regarding restitution. So people who are victims of crimes, ultimately, if the accused is convicted, then they can make a request for restitution. And so depending on the situation, the restitution amount can be a very significant amount of money. So in a situation where an alleged victim is saying that they were subject to sexual abuse, as early as the age of 14, and they had sex, and they were only 15 years old, and the guy was 30 years old, and they had to go through all this trauma, they were recorded. If this is believed by the jury, then naturally that would be something that perhaps somebody would ultimately need therapy for. They may have, years of trauma that they had to ultimately overcome. And so there might be a dollar amount placed on that she could stand to receive in the form of restitution. The defense attorney was using that as a possible reason why she's coming out and saying this or even making this stuff up so that she can collect a check on the back end. And of course, Jane came back saying that, she doesn't know whether or not she'll seek restitution in this case. So that wasn't her motivation for coming out and testifying. So keep in mind, as defense attorneys, we don't make up the facts in our cases. We have to play the hand that we're dealt. And so you do what you can to raise reasonable doubt in front of the jury and to make sure that your client is being treated fairly and make sure that their constitutional rights are protected. But one thing that I mentioned in that last video was that there was not going to be a direct refuting of what Jane said. And this is a big challenge, that Jane testified under oath that she was 15 when she had sex with R. Kelly. R. Kelly was in his early 30s. They had sex on tape, and ultimately that he made efforts to cover it up. Attacking Jane's credibility, making her out to be a liar, that only gets you so far. But again, what would be the evidence or the testimony that would do away with what it is that she said? That would be R. Kelly taking the stand and saying, I never had sex with this girl. I never had sex with her. I never had sex with her on tape, and I didn't do what everyone is saying to cover this up. But that's not going to happen because, again, R. Kelly's not taking the stand in this case. There will be no direct refuting of what Jane said, and that's the problem. So we'll keep you posted as to new developments as they arise in this case. I hope you got something out of this. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, make sure you turn on notifications so you never miss a new video when it drops. And as always, I want to thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace.